Mr. President, can we start? Time for the next panel. Interesting panel, the art, science, and ethics of innovation. Miguel, shall we go for it?
Yes, first. Professor.
First talk, the art, innovative designs. It's James Geiger giving his first talk. Okay. Go for it.
Great.
We would like to ask all four panelists, us, to stick to the allocated time, which is about 10 to 12 minutes, and then we'll have room and time for discussions. Okay, so we'll have all four presentations in a row, and then we'll discuss.
Okay, well, it's great to follow on Barbara's great talk, and be a little bit of similarities, but I won't focus too much on our consortium at Michigan, but talk a little bit about some of my personal experience with innovation, and maybe give a little bit of hope or idea that this is possible and that we all can do this. So I had to have some disclosures. FlexDex Incorporated is a company that I've founded and have a relationship with. I've also done some consulting work and also an inventor with Storz. So innovation, what is innovation? So if you go and look in the Webster's dictionary, this is the definitions that you'll see. So something that's newly introduced, something that a new method to do something, those are all innovations. It's basically a new way that we do something. Jeffrey Nicholson was an executive at 3M. He's not the inventor of the Post-it note, but he was the executive that facilitated the Post-it note to move forward. And he defined innovation this way, that research is the transformation of money into knowledge, and innovations are the transformation of knowledge into money. So we're not all about money. We sort of use a little bit different definition and change the word value or money into value. The point is that even if you come up with a new way to do an operation, it becomes an innovation when others use it, when others adopt it. That's when you create a change in the world. Same thing when you create a new device. It's great to create it, it's great to have the invention, but it's not an innovation until it's adopted by others and it impacts the care of our patients. Now, this all starts from understanding a need. And many of us can see needs. Sometimes we're blind to them. I had a very famous thoracic surgeon that trained me in general surgery, and he used to walk in the OR every day, and he said, same way every day. That's not really an environment where much news is going to come from. But invention does come out of necessity. So I struggled in the early days of doing laparoscopic pyloromyotomy. This is some pictures of, the traditional open technique. And we used to grasp the duodenum with a regular laparoscopic grasper, and one of the hard things is, and it'll come out in the later talks, when you develop or try to take and adopt new technologies to an established procedure, it's very difficult to not have some complications. I think we'll hear some ideas of how you can reduce that, but we did have some complications that weren't expected or shouldn't have happened in these cases. So initially, I did something that's a workaround. I think someone mentioned this in this conference this week, but I took a simple vascular clamp that I placed through the abdominal wall to stabilize the pylorus, which greatly reduced the risk of injury of the duodenum and provided more stability to the pylorus itself. And this is something that I was able to work with a device manufacturer to help get that device out there and to hopefully impact and make this operation easier for people to do. This project, which I did more than almost 15 years ago now, was when I tried to take this forward is when I started to run into frustration. I'm like, well, how do I design this? Who can help me? And I'm fortunate at Michigan that we have our engineering school, our business school, our law school are all on one campus with the health system. So you don't have to go far, but it's surprising. We live in such siloed environments that even though those distances are not far, nobody goes across those boundaries, or very few people. So that'll be one of the things I think is very important. If you want to be successful at this, you need to go across the boundaries or break down the silos, as we say. The other thing is you can't just ask surgeons or ask people, like, what do you need to make your life easier? They'll give you ideas, and some are right, but what we have found, and I've been a part of a fellowship program, which I'll tell you briefly about, is that we call it clinical immersion or observations. You need to immerse yourself in the clinical environment. And I've been fortunate throughout my career, and I'm looking out at Mac Harmon, who also experienced this when he was at Michigan. And we would go out to some community hospitals to work. And one of the joys that I found at the community hospital was I'd be in the same ORs as the general surgeons and the gynecologist. And I would walk into their ORs and I'd see what's going on. And I learned a tremendous amount. At that point, I'm an observer. I'm not a clinician. So when you go into those environments, and there's ways to do it right, and we take our engineers and our innovation fellows into those environments, and we teach them how to move within the clinical environment, which you all already know how to do. But then we teach them how to make critical observations, how to document those observations. It's very powerful when you're thinking about an idea. And all of us go in there with some foundation of knowledge, which is very important. As Louis Pasteur said, you have to have, the field of observation, fortune or luck comes from those who have a prepared mind. That's very important. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our innovation process. So there is an art, if you will, some science to the innovation process. And if you have a discipline to it, just like anything we do, it can make it more possible that you're going to get to an optimal solution. So we're very big on starting at the need. This is the observation. And we go through a process where you develop, we call these opportunity hypotheses. We then whittle this down with a process we call them opportunity statements. And you can see some of the things we're doing here, pairwise comparisons. We're validating by talking to thought leaders. We're maybe talking to patients. We're making more observations. And eventually we come down to a really well-defined need. It's not over there, though, because we want to now solve this problem. We then start with the need, and we broaden back out to find the optimal solution. So this is the reverse of, like, I have a technology, right? I have the hammer looking for the nail. This is starting with the nail and looking for the optimal way to insert the nail into the wood. So we then go from the need and we broaden back out to look for all the different potential ways to solve it. We're technology agnostic. I don't care if it's a polymer, I don't care if it's a cellular based, whatever is the optimal way to do it. And then we brainstorm on those sessions. We bring multidisciplinary groups, very important to go again across the disciplines. We leverage, we certainly look for technologies that are close to us, but if it's a technology from somewhere else, that's fine. We start to look at the IP space to see what's been done out there. And eventually you come up with a commercializable solution, but always you keep going back to the need to make sure, are you meeting the need or the problem that you're trying to solve? So that's just a brief overview of the process. You then, as Barbara started talking, I'm not gonna have enough time to go in this, but there's a lot of challenges to take a technology forward. And I'm going to personalize a little bit more and just tell you a little bit about my story, but it is possible to get there. There's lots of ways you can get tripped up, and these are some of the things that you have to overcome. It's possible. There are more and more resources at most of our universities. There are the device consortiums that I think can help you. You just sometimes need help to get started and get with the right team, and things can really take off. Ultimately, it does take money to move things forward as well. So I'm going to tell you just really briefly, one of the thrills that I've had over the last years, just like training surgical residents, is I've trained now over 28 innovation fellows, very similar to the program Tom Crummell has at Stanford and at Biodesign. And these people come from different disciplines. They have MBAs, engineering, advanced engineering degrees, and MDs. We mix them together, and we force them not just to work within their own discipline, but to learn at least what we call conversational level of language of the other disciplines. And really that's when the magic starts. And we've done a lot of work with the biomedical engineers as well. We've created online video education programs. And we've worked with educating industry and doing some really unique projects with industry as well. There's 3 spin-out companies that have come out of this. And this is an example of one of our teams. This team looked at the IV catheters and they saw the looping tubing that you see on the bottom right there, and how that tubing would always get caught and get pulled out. And of course in kids that's a big deal because you have to put the child through more pain and access is difficult, so this is the problem. So they redesigned the IV catheter and they put the looping built into the IV catheter itself, which you can see here. What they came up, this is what happens when you innovate, they happened onto something that was by chance. Because of that, they ended up with 2 points of fixation for the catheter. Here at the hub, which they put a broad-based fixation, and here. This IV catheter, now, if you put an IV there, the old type IV, it moves in and out, small amounts, but it moves in and out of the vein with movement of the hand. This one doesn't move at all. So lower infection rates, lower thrombosis rates, less pain with the IV catheter. They didn't know they were going to hit on that one. They were just trying to solve the first problem. So very exciting. This product is now available on the market. The 3 of the fellows lived out of their car practically in the beginning to get started, but they're now having the joys of seeing their product used. So I won't go into this much, but this program, as Barbara mentioned, this actually was funded out of the FDA, somewhat unique, to develop the pediatric device consortiums. We were fortunate to be a part of it from the beginning, and it really is, an exciting program. We're all working then to create a sustained effort in pediatric device development so we can continue to have an impact. And it is all about the team, the people that you work with. I've been very fortunate to have people a lot smarter than me around me. We have many projects that are moving within our pediatric device consortium. We leverage expertise of what we call our Pediatric Technology Advisory Group. We work very early to get industry involved. We also provide funding and active project management. I've also developed within our medical center something that's a unique asset, which is an advanced manufacturing or design and prototyping lab. They're present on most of our engineering campuses, but not usually right on the medical center campus. This is an iterative lab, really fun place to hang out and do some either crude or very advanced prototyping. And we've had some really exciting things happen that have come out of the consortium, some really unique devices, and it continues. It's been really rewarding. So there are some challenges in this, though. First of all, we've not done a good job as pediatric surgeons of capturing the problems that devices designed for adults have done. We need to do more studies where we actually capture what those problems are and report them so that the FDA sees those studies and device manufacturers see those studies. Some of these registries we have put in fields that capture what happens to the device, what device is used, what are the complications. We need to have sustained programs. We need better funding. We need to accelerate a lower cost regulatory process for these small markets. There are some efforts that way, but it can be better. We need even improved incentives for big companies, whether it's even better patent protection, other incentives that allow big companies to be incented to get involved in this. And you have to have unique collaborations across all these spaces. I think you need some novel business concepts, potentially more of a nonprofit or a model where you can take in philanthropy and real money. We need clinical trials networks that can do device trials in an efficient way. And we need to work on, obviously, the reimbursement issues. Global markets can help us. There's a bigger pediatric population in the world. And if we apply these, to a global market, I think we'll have greater success. And we need to celebrate success. Steve Rothenberg's company, Just Right, I mean, I can just tell you that you have somebody who identified a need, said, I'm going to solve this problem, and push through it, tried to get the big companies to do it. They didn't respond. So, going to do it myself. That's what we need to do, and we need to celebrate those successes, because if each company that's successful creates an infrastructure that allows follow-on companies to have an easier time to penetrate some of these markets. So my story a little bit is another project I started back in 2007 was the issues related to the Da Vinci robot. I saw the promise of it, but I also saw some of the limitations. And I approached a really brilliant mechanical engineer at Michigan and said, look, let's create a low-cost, purely mechanical device that gives us the same level of functionality. So that started in 2007. It took us about 2 years with some really brilliant graduate students to overcome the design or the innovation that was needed. My engineering colleague actually won something called the Da Vinci Award, ironically, which is given to only 26 mechanical engineers in history have won it, and sometimes teams, including the Mars rover project, for example. So it's a really cool concept to overcome a problem. But then, you struggle to find the right people to work with you, to find money. We were fortunate, finally, that tipped us over was we got an SBIR, or a small business grant, through the National Science Foundation. We got a Phase 1 award. That allowed us to get a little bit of attention and start to attract some real people. We then got a Phase 2 award, and that's really what's propelled us to then get private investment and move this forward. And now it's 2015, and we hope that in the next year, we're going to have a product that will impact people's lives. But it takes time, lots of iteration, but it's been really fun. So a few things. So if you have an idea, now what? The first thing is you have to validate your need. Validate the need, understand, is it a real need, you know, in some of the process that I talked about. You then sort of have to understand where you are in the whole risk profile. In other words, how big is the market? What's the technical risk? Is this going to take a Nobel Prize level science to overcome this? Or is it how much investment in the technical side? What's the regulatory path, which adds risk? What's the IP thing? So I don't have time to go into all this today, but these are things you need to understand. You need to find collaborators across the silos. Go to your engineering college, go to your business school, wherever you need help, find it, and learn to speak their language a little bit. Failure isn't bad. This is very common in the innovation. You have to fail fast, fail cheap is the saying. Prototype early. If you get something real that you can get your hands on, it's about the team ultimately. It takes people to commercialize a device. It takes people that will work against people telling them that this will never be successful. So tons of perseverance and talent and people that have done it. You do eventually need to surround yourself around people that have taken technologies forward. And it is fun. That's really hard work, but you have to enjoy the process, otherwise we won't do it. So I'll finish just with this one. We're all busy surgeons. I was recently in Beijing and they said, well, how can we do this? They said, we're working all the time. And if you've been in some of these places, you know how hard they work. But, you know, it just takes two things, a plan and not enough time, because that's what creates that pressure to really get it done. So anyway, it's just a little bit about my story through innovation. I'm really thrilled that Mark and the program committee gave us an opportunity to spend some time on this important issue. Thank you very much.